Victor Hayes seemed like an ordinary neighbor, but behind closed doors, he was hiding a horrifying secret. When Emily Sanders vanished, no one suspected that the very man guiding the police would lead them straight into her prison. It all began on a quiet Tuesday morning in the suburban town of Maplewood. The streets were peaceful, the sun filtering through the tall oaks lining the sidewalks, and the town seemed like the kind of place where nothing ever went wrong. But that morning, something had already started to feel off. Emily Sanders, a 25-year-old woman known for her cheerful smile and friendly demeanor, didn't show up at her favorite coffee shop. She was always the first one in line, always polite, always chatting with the baristas. Her absence was noticed immediately, but no one thought much of it at first. People assumed she was running late. By mid-afternoon, concern began to grow. Emily hadn't been seen at work either. Her coworkers, puzzled and increasingly worried, called her phone repeatedly, only to reach voicemail. Emails went unanswered, and her social media, usually active with posts and stories, had gone silent. The quiet absence of a normally vibrant young woman sent a ripple of unease through everyone who knew her. Police were called in when her neighbor discovered her apartment door slightly ajar. Inside, there were no signs of a struggle. Everything seemed normal. Emily's purse and keys were in their usual places, her apartment tidy, as always. Yet, the sense of something being wrong was undeniable. Detectives scoured the apartment for clues, examining everything from the mail on the counter to the faint footprints near the balcony. The entire neighborhood felt a subtle shift, as if the air itself had grown heavier. When cases like this happen, it's easy to wonder, what would you do if someone you cared about simply disappeared? Would you trust that they would return on their own, or would you act immediately? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Sometimes, these situations reveal truths about people's instincts and fears that they didn't even know existed. The investigation began in earnest. Detectives interviewed friends, coworkers, and neighbors. No one had seen or heard anything suspicious. Security footage from local stores and street cameras showed Emily leaving work at her usual time, walking down familiar streets, carrying her bag and her usual bright smile. After that, the trail went cold. It was as if the ground had swallowed her whole. Then, a curious tip came from a man named Victor Hayes. He lived just a few blocks away and claimed he might know something about Emily's disappearance. What made Victor stand out immediately was his demeanor. Unlike the nervous, anxious relatives and friends, Victor was calm, almost too calm. He spoke in measured tones, offered information without hesitation, and seemed entirely unaffected by the seriousness of the situation. Have you ever noticed how sometimes the people who seem the most composed are the ones hiding the deepest secrets? It's chilling to think about, and in cases like this, intuition can be crucial. If you're watching this, take a moment to like this video if you believe in trusting your instincts. Victor said he had seen Emily in the past few days, but he refused to reveal the location at first. Instead, he dropped hints, spoke vaguely about places she might be, and described areas he thought could hold clues. Police followed every lead, though none yielded results. Hours turned into a day, and a day into two. The worry in the town grew. Flyers appeared on lampposts and in-store windows, bearing Emily's face and the words missing, "Please, help." Social media buzzed with concern, strangers sharing her photo, hoping someone had information. Despite the growing tension, Victor remained eerily composed. He didn't panic when the police pressed him, didn't appear afraid of being discovered, and, strangely, didn't seem affected by Emily's disappearance. It was this very composure that drew suspicion, even if no one could quite put a finger on why. Something about his calmness didn't fit the urgency of the situation. Meanwhile, detectives reviewed footage and conducted background checks on everyone Emily had been in contact with. The list was long, yet nothing pointed directly to foul play until a small detail caught their attention. Victor had been seen near Emily's apartment on multiple occasions, always appearing casual, always blending in with the quiet neighborhood. At that moment, police began to wonder if this calm, collected man might be more involved than anyone had suspected. And this is where the story takes a turn that many would find hard to believe. The very man who seemed like an ordinary neighbor, who smiled at people on the street and helped carry groceries, was about to lead the police straight into the heart of a secret no one could have imagined. But before we get there, let me ask you this. If someone close to you vanished, would you trust the last person who claimed to know where they were? Think about that, and drop a comment below with your answer. As the sun began to set over Maplewood, the mystery deepened. Emily Sanders remained missing, and the calmness of Victor Hayes only added to the tension. Police prepared for the next day, unsure of what they might discover. Little did they know, the next step in the investigation would uncover a truth so shocking, it would leave the entire town questioning how well they really knew the people around them. Victor Hayes agreed to guide the police to a location he claimed could answer the questions surrounding Emily's disappearance. From the start, there was something unnerving about the way he moved through the streets of Maplewood. His steps were slow, deliberate, and yet entirely unhurried. The detectives followed, unsure if he was being helpful or manipulative. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the town, and everything seemed deceptively calm. Children played on the sidewalks, a dog barked somewhere in the distance, and neighbors waved at Victor as though nothing was unusual. He led them to a suburban street where the houses were nearly identical, neat lawns, freshly painted doors, flower pots by the steps. It was the kind of neighborhood where everyone knew everyone, and nothing bad was supposed to happen. Yet, standing in front of one particular house, Victor's calm demeanor did something strange. It made the detectives feel uneasy. He smiled faintly and said, "This is the place." The house looked ordinary from the outside. Nothing about it screamed danger. The paint was fresh, the windows clean, and the yard was well. Victor handed the police a key, without hesitation, as if this were a casual errand rather than a crucial moment in a missing person case. The detectives exchanged glances. How could someone be so relaxed while possibly leading them to a crime scene? As they entered, the house seemed even more ordinary. The living room was spotless. Family photos lined the walls. A television played quietly in the corner, and the faint smell of air freshener lingered in the air. At first glance, it was impossible to imagine anything sinister happening here, but detectives had learned long ago that appearances could be deceiving. The calmness of Victor, the normalcy of the house thieves, were often hallmarks of the most meticulous criminals. Walking further into the house, Victor guided them down a narrow hallway and into a basement. The basement was dimly lit, cool, and quiet. For a moment, it seemed unremarkable, just another storage area. Boxers stacked in corners, cleaning supplies along the walls. Nothing that immediately indicated danger. But then a trained eye noticed something. A faint draft coming from the far corner, where a section of the wall looked slightly different. It was a hidden door, cleverly disguised to blend in with the rest of the basement. Have you ever walked into a place and felt something was just wrong? That gut feeling, that chill running down your spine, is something police learn to trust. If you've ever had that feeling in your own life, comment below. Sometimes, it's the only warning you get before discovering something terrifying. Detectives approached the hidden door carefully. Victor didn't resist, didn't act nervous. He simply waited, smiling faintly, as if he were enjoying the moment without fear of discovery. It was unsettling. The police had seen criminals panic, run, or at least show some hint of remorse. But Victor's composure was extraordinary. It made them question what kind of person could commit a crime and remain so calm, so confident, even while standing at the threshold of exposure. One detective reached for the handle and slowly opened the hidden door. A cold, stale air rushed out, hitting them like a wave. The darkness beyond seemed almost unnatural, as if it were absorbing the light from their flashlights. Inside, they glimpsed what appeared to be a small, sealed room. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong, but it was impossible to predict the horror that awaited them inside as they prepared to enter. Victor continued to stand calmly, almost casually, behind them. He didn't speak, didn't intervene, and didn't offer excuses. He had led them here, willingly, without coercion, yet his expression revealed nothing, no shame, no fear, no hint of what he had done. It was almost as if he were daring them to find him out. Now, imagine for a moment being in the detective's shoes. You're standing at the entrance of a hidden room, led there by someone who may have committed unspeakable acts. The air is heavy, the silence deafening, and every step could reveal a truth too horrible to comprehend. It's in these moments that professionals rely not only on training, but on sheer courage. For the viewers watching this story unfold, take a moment to like this video if you've ever felt tension in a situation you couldn't control. It's that very tension, that mix of fear and anticipation, that makes stories like this unforgettable. The detectives, heartbeats quickening, stepped into the darkened space. Flashlights cutting through the shadows, the house that seemed so ordinary, the man who seemed so ordinary, had led them into the unknown, and what they were about to discover would be shocking enough to haunt the quiet town of Maplewood forever. Victor Hayes had guided them here with such casual precision, it was almost as if he were showing them a secret he was proud to hide, waiting for the exact moment the truth would finally be revealed. As the detectives stepped into the hidden room, the air grew noticeably colder, heavier, as if the space itself was holding its breath. The walls were bare, painted a dull gray, and the floor was cold concrete. At first it seemed empty, just a shadowed, confined space. The silence was almost suffocating, broken only by the faint hum of the detectives' flashlights and the distant sound of the town outside. Unaware of the horrors hidden within this ordinary-looking house, Victor Hayes remained calm behind them, leaning casually against the wall, as if he were merely observing a routine inspection rather than the exposure of a dark secret. His composure was unnerving. The detectives had entered hidden rooms before, uncovered illegal operations, or stashed evidence, but never had they seen someone so relaxed at the very sight of their own crimes. Then, in the far corner of the room, their flashlights caught a movement. At first, it seemed like a shadow, but as their eyes adjusted, they realized it was Emily. She was lying on the floor, weak and barely conscious. Her body curled defensively, as though instinctively protecting herself. Her hair was disheveled, clothes slightly torn, and the expression on her face reflected weeks of fear and suffering. The room around her told a grim story. Empty food containers littered the floor. A small mattress in one corner showed signs of prolonged use, and faint marks on the walls suggested she had tried to escape. Every detail pointed to a cruel truth. Emily had been imprisoned here for weeks, hidden in plain sight, in a house that seemed ordinary to the outside world. Detectives rushed to her side, careful not to startle her, and quickly called for medical assistance. She was weak, dehydrated, and frightened, but alive. In that moment, the horror of Victor Hayes' actions became tangible. The man who had led them here so casually had watched, planned, and controlled her life while maintaining a calm exterior that fooled everyone around him. Evidence collected from the room deepened the chilling picture. Surveillance footage on a small hidden camera showed Victor monitoring Emily, documenting her movements in the confined space. Notes, meticulously written, outlined schedules, instructions, and rules he had imposed. The meticulousness of the records revealed a mind that had calculated every detail of the crime. Yet he carried himself with the confidence of someone untouchable. What's perhaps most terrifying is the realization that someone so ordinary-looking could commit such acts without arousing suspicion. Victor had greeted neighbors, smiled at children, even attended social events in the town, while Emily suffered in the hidden basement. It was a stark reminder of how danger can hide behind a friendly face, and how appearances can be deceiving. Now, think about this. Have you ever felt uneasy around someone who seemed perfectly normal? Sometimes, our instincts pick up on subtle cues that others overlook. If you've ever experienced that feeling, comment below. It's the same intuition that helped the detectives take action before the situation became fatal. Medical personnel arrived, carefully carrying Emily out of the basement. The detectives stayed behind, surveying the room one last time, documenting every detail. Every object, every mark on the wall, told a story of cruelty and calculated control. The house that had seemed ordinary was a prison, and Victor Hayes, the ordinary neighbor, had been both jailer and manipulator. As Emily received treatment, police began questioning Victor. He spoke calmly, almost casually, as if recounting a neutral observation rather than detailing weeks of imprisonment. There was no panic, no denial, no remorse. He admitted to keeping her in the basement, but claimed it had all been necessary. The lack of emotion, the absence of guilt, made the detective's skin crawl. How could someone commit such acts and feel nothing? The town of Maplewood was about to learn the shocking truth. Neighbors who had seen Victor waving and smiling, attending local events, and casually walking his dog, would later struggle to reconcile the man they knew with the crimes he had committed in plain sight. It was a story that reminded everyone that evil can exist anywhere, even in the most ordinary-looking homes. Victor Hayes' calmness had been a dangerous weapon, lulling everyone into a false sense of security while hiding the reality of Emily's captivity. The detectives knew that capturing him alive was fortunate, but they also knew that understanding his motives, his psyche, would be one of the most challenging parts of the case. For the viewers watching this story unfold, think about how ordinary appearances can mask dark intentions. The calm, casual demeanor of a person can sometimes hide the most horrifying secrets. Take a moment to like and subscribe if you're fascinated by how ordinary individuals can commit extraordinary crimes. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones you never suspect. As Emily began her recovery and Victor Hayes faced questioning, the detectives prepared for the final stages of the investigation. What would come next would reveal the full extent of Victor's planning, his psychological manipulation, and the unsettling truth that a criminal's most powerful weapon can be their ability to appear ordinary while committing the unthinkable. Victor Hayes was taken into custody immediately after Emily was rescued. The calm, casual man who had led the police straight into his hidden crime scene now faced the consequences of his meticulously planned actions. Yet even in handcuffs, he showed no signs of fear or remorse. He answered questions with the same detached composure he had displayed while guiding detectives through the house. It was as if the reality of his capture had little effect on him, as if he had anticipated every possible outcome and remained confident throughout. Investigators worked tirelessly to piece together the full story. The basement, the hidden cameras, the careful records Victor had kept all painted a chilling picture of control and manipulation. Weeks of careful planning had gone into Emily's captivity. Every aspect of her confinement was accounted for, from the timing of her meals to the monitoring of her movements. Victor had turned the house into a prison, yet outwardly, he maintained the facade of an ordinary neighbor, blending seamlessly into the community. The town of Maplewood struggled to come to terms with what had happened. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues who had seen Victor smile, wave, and casually greet people on the street now wondered how they could have been so blind. How could someone so ordinary hide such darkness? The unsettling answer was that appearances could be deceiving. Evil, in its most dangerous form, often hides behind the familiar, the friendly, the completely unassuming. Emily's recovery became the community's focus. She spent weeks receiving medical care, both physical and psychological. Every detail of her ordeal weighed heavily on her, yet she survived, a testament to resilience in the face of unimaginable suffering. As she gradually regained strength, she worked with investigators to provide insight into Victor's methods and routines. Her testimony was critical in understanding not only the logistics of her imprisonment, but also the mindset of a person capable of such calculated cruelty. During interrogations, Victor revealed unsettling truths. He admitted to planning every detail of Emily's confinement and claimed that he had no intention of being caught. The audacity of his calmness, the precision of his planning, and the complete lack of empathy shocked even the most seasoned detectives. It was a chilling reminder that some people are capable of hiding their darkness behind a mask of ordinary behavior. Every day, they can walk among us without raising suspicion. The trial that followed drew national attention. Newspapers, news programs, and social media outlets covered the story extensively. People were captivated and horrified in equal measure by the audacity of Victor's actions and the stark contrast between his public persona and private crimes. The courtroom was tense as evidence was presented. Photographs of the hidden room, the surveillance footage, and Emily's account of her captivity. Each piece painted a clearer picture of the methodical and chilling nature of Victor's crime. Psychologists called in as expert witnesses discussed Victor's lack of remorse and his ability to remain calm under pressure. They described a personality that thrived on control, someone who meticulously planned his actions and experienced no apparent moral conflict. This insight was both fascinating and terrifying. For the town of Maplewood, it was a lesson in vigilance and the unsettling reality that danger can exist even in the most familiar surroundings. When the verdict was announced, Victor Hayes was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent as the words sank in, but outside, the town exhaled collectively. Justice had been served, yet the unease lingered. How could someone so ordinary commit something so horrific? How could someone maintain such calmness while orchestrating a nightmare? Even after the trial, Emily's story became a symbol of survival and courage. She spoke publicly about her ordeal, raising awareness about the signs of manipulation and captivity. Her experience reminded people that danger can sometimes be closer than they realize, and that instincts and vigilance are crucial. The community learned to recognize the subtle signs of deception and to take action when something feels wrong. Victor Hayes' calm, casual demeanor, which had once allowed him to hide in plain sight, became a haunting lesson. The house that had seemed ordinary, the neighbor who had seemed harmless, were forever etched in the memories of those involved. It was a reminder that evil can be quiet, methodical, and hidden, and that ordinary appearances should never be taken at face value. For those watching this story, remember that awareness and intuition can be life-saving. The ability to question, to notice small inconsistencies, and to trust your instincts can make all the difference. Victor Hayes may have led police into his murder house casually, but in the end, his crimes were revealed and justice was served. Yet the story leaves a lingering question. How many others, seemingly ordinary and calm, hide secrets far darker than anyone could imagine? Maplewood slowly returned to its quiet routine, but the memory of Emily's ordeal and Victor Hayes' audacity remained. It served as a stark reminder that beneath ordinary appearances, extraordinary darkness can sometimes be hiding. And for those who heard her story, it was a warning. Stay alert, trust your instincts, and never assume that calmness and familiarity always mean safety.